So the purpose of this lesson is to look at this idea and this skill of embedding quotes. So we know, and we talked in last lesson about the fact that we need to put quotes into our essay. So it's not enough just to say something about the character or something about what happens, but to be really thorough with our evidence and with our detail, we actually need to include quotes. But another skill we need to learn with our quotes is that we need to embed them. And what that means is that we have to insert them so that they fit smoothly into our sentences, that they as we write, that the quote doesn't stand out or make the writing kind of jerk or jolt, but it's really flowy, it's really clear. So what does this mean? Well, an embedded quote flows naturally in your writing. It should just sound like part of your own sentence. And so a floating quote, this is sort of sometimes called a dangling quote or a floating quote. It jumps, it disrupts the paragraph, it disrupts the writing. And usually it's because as a reader, we don't know who is saying it. So I'll give you an example. Just this section here. Donalbain and Malcolm decide to run away because they don't trust the other characters. There's daggers in men's smiles. The near in blood, the nearer bloody. And so this is a quote that explains, or that is connected to the statement above it, but without a kind of introduction to the quote or an explanation of the quote, with it just sitting there like that. As a reader, you start talking about Donalbain and Malcolm, and all of a sudden you're talking about daggers, and it doesn't make any sense at all. And so we need to embed it into another sentence in order to make the writing flow. For example, this one here, Donalbain and Malcolm decide to run away because they don't trust the other characters. This can be seen when Donalbain claims that there's daggers in men's smiles, the near the blood, the nearer bloody. So that is an example of an embedded quote. Usually an embedded quote, the most simple way of doing that is adding some form of sentence that says, this can be seen when character says that. Yeah. And you might say claims, argues, declares, whatever. You can use any verb there. If you want to add an adverb, you could describe how he says it. So somebody might evocatively exclaim, or they might emphatically declare something. It just adds, when you talk about how they say it, you are talking about text construction again. You are describing the use of language. That's just a little trick that you can put into your writing. But the other thing that you can do, and it's much easier to do it this way, is, and this is because you've got to memorize these quotes. The shorter you can make your quotes, the better. So you can put your own writing around it. And if your quotes are only 1 or 2 words, and a maximum of 5 words-ish, like sometimes a bit longer, you might find that there's a need to, a special quote that is a bit longer than that. But honestly, not too many of your quotes need to be longer than 5 words. Many of them are okay at just 2 or 3. And so this is another example here, that Donalbain and Malcolm decide to run away because they don't trust the other characters. Donalbain describes how they are in danger by a hidden enemy, saying that there's daggers in men's smiles. So there's just a 4-word quote there. And you're also analysing in the sentence around it. Then he suggests that if they remain near, then they will have a bloody ending. So there's 2 quotes that is just the word near and the word bloody. And so I find it easier to do this way, but you do have to be stepping above the text, and you do have to have the words around it in your own words. And so we've got a paragraph here to look at, and this paragraph has 2 quotes in it that have not been embedded. So we'll read it together. The first one we'll do together and embed it. The second one I'll leave for you to do. So the paragraph goes like this. The point sentence, both Macbeth and Black Panther reveal that the lust for power may lead characters to betray those closest to them. Shakespeare depicts, notice how we're stepping above the text, so we're taking on those lessons from the last couple of video lessons. Shakespeare depicts Macbeth as ambitious and driven by desire to be king hereafter, which is revealed in his cold-blooded murder of King Duncan. Okay. And then we have our quote, I am settled and bend up each corporal agent to this terrible feat. Now this jerks. Suddenly there's an I. We don't know who the I is. It's just sort of dangling here. And that needs to be avoided. The sentence afterwards then explains it, saying this shows, so this is our analysis of the quote. This shows how Macbeth is settled to commit murder and he knows that his actions are terrible. So what we can do here is we can pick a section, and maybe that section is just this word here, settled. Maybe we could pick corporal agent and terrible feat. And then we can pop the rest of that into our own words. So we could say something like, before he commits the murder, Macbeth says he is settled. Okay, so it's just one word. He's settled, which reveals his determination to follow through with the act. So we could actually say, before he commits the murder, he said he is settled to this terrible feat. So we've got just 2 little bits of that quote. Then we have, after the initial murder, he then attempts to hide his crime by murdering the 2 guards. And here's another dangling quote. Who could refrain that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to make love known? So this is actually what Macbeth says when the other thanes approach him and saying, why did you commit this murder? Why did you kill these 2 guards? And he's justifying his action, and he says, who could refrain that had a heart to love? So he's saying, look, I love my king, and so I was showing my love, using courage to show my love by committing the murder. So I was so full of love for my king that I committed murder. So you might choose something. Maybe he couldn't refrain because he had a heart to love. Maybe you talk about making courage to make love known. But somehow I want you to put this little quote and embed it around a sentence. So you're going to have to start using third person. So when Thanes asked him why he committed the murder, he attempted to hide his crime by stating that, and then put the quote however you would choose. But do that for me now, and then there will be 3 more tasks to practice embedding quotes for you to do so that you can check off this checkpoint on your way to the essay preparation. Thanks guys, and good luck with this embedding quotes. Awesome.